Officials of the KZN, ANC and the NEC, member Dr. Zweli Mkhize, the alliance partners and Action SA are all at Buthelezi's home to offer their condolences after the 95-year-old passed away yesterday. Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngobo has been in KwaMahlabathini since this morning. Ziyanda, I believe you've got Dr. Zweli Mkhize there, who has joined other political leaders in coming to pay their respects.
Absolutely, and he's the most senior ANC member here today to come pay condolences to the Buthelezi family. Now, not only are you in the ANC NEC, but is your role as the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal and in other roles, you're considered an elder for all intents and purposes. What does this moment mean for this province and the country?
Well, it's a very sad moment, and I think first we start by conveying condolences to the Buthelezi family, the entire Wapindangen household, as well as the people of the Buthelezi clan, of whom he was the head. We also have to convey our condolences to His Majesty Isilo Ndulamiti for losing one of the pillars of the traditional Prime Minister and the pillar of the Zulu monarchy. And we believe that his departure is actually, taking away a lot of, knowledge, a lot of history, a lot of institutional memory, which would have helped to guide the young monarch as he steps into the new position on the throne. Now, beyond that, we also convey condolences to the Inkatha Freedom Party. It must be very difficult to have the leader, the founder, the one who's been their guide and their role model and their inspiration, having to depart at this point. Of course, we all know that the difficult part for all parties is the change of leadership. And in this case, they've only got one person that they've looked up to, and today he's no more, and therefore it's got a huge challenge and an end of an era within the IFP as a party. But we want to say to them that they have learned a lot. They have learned a lot from Umtwana, and so they need to continue from that point of view. From the point of view of the African National Congress, we also want to convey our sympathies on the basis of the role that Umtwana has played in the politics of South Africa. He was a politician that you could not ignore. You didn't need to agree with him, but you couldn't ignore. In fact, his impact has been over the past maybe 40, 50 years in the politics of South Africa. And the sad part is that his passing away has happened before the conclusion of what he has been calling for, which is the ultimate and total and full reconciliation between the African National Congress and Inkatha Freedom Party. And the real reason for it is the fact that Inkatha Freedom Party, when it was formed, it was actually not a hostile movement to the African National Congress. It was supposed to be a part of the ANC, which was going to wage the struggle at a mass level at the inside the country, and the ANC in exile would then interact. And when we sat down with many of the leaders of the IFP, they used to relate stories of how, whilst Inkatha was serving under the Homeland government, they were actually in good direct contact with the leaders such as President Oliver Tambo, Mapida, President Zuma, President Mbeki, and so on over that period. So I think that part of the legacy that we have to preserve is that of bringing total reconciliation and peace amongst the people of KwaZulu-Natal, where we lost a lot of people in the conflict which was seen to be ANC and IFP. But actually, we all know that as the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, unfolded, it became clear that underlying all of this conflict was the driving force, which was called the third force. It was the apartheid government. It was the leaders in government of P.W. Botha, of de Klerk, and the other ministers, Magnus Malan, Adrian Flock, Lefrange, and some of the operatives, Andy Taylor, Eugene de Kock, you had a whole lot of them who were operating and driving this machinery that caused the hostilities. At this point, therefore, it's important to say we had Madiba and Shenge leading the process of reconciliation after that conflict had been realized to have been not of our causing. And in that process, we had teams in KwaZulu-Natal, 3 aside, 5 aside, between the ANC
and that failed, and to bring about that reconciliation.
It did not fail in what it was supposed to do, but the ultimate reconciliation was not ultimately achieved. But what it achieved, firstly, was that we stopped the violence. We agreed that everyone had to work together. We stopped the no-go zones. They were actually, brought to an end. We had leaders who used to go out and incite violence and conflict. We actually called them to order. We actually had working committees of both parties that would go into areas where there would have been, massacres and actually tell people to stop this. We did a lot of that. In fact, the peace that arose out of that was out of those meetings. I used to sit in those meetings, and I recall that when the history of how the ANC and IFP had related, then the members stood up and asked the question, so why are we fighting? And we went out and said, please postpone the elections. Let's go out and make sure that these elections are free of violence, which in the past was the mark of the conflict of the elections in KwaZulu-Natal.
So Dr. Mkhize, unfortunately, I'm out of time. Thank you so much for your reflections. That's Dr. Zweli Mkhize reflecting, of course, on the relationship that he had personally with Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, but also bringing about his peace and stability in the province during those tumultuous years.
Zianda Ngobo, thank you.